Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. After recuperating for 2 days, he felt much better. Only now he heard that Hu Hao, Ju Zi, and Kuku had returned. Xian Ziwen had settled this matter already, and the imperial family willingly dropped the matter. They didn't care much since Wang Xiaojie wasn't critically injured. However, Xian Ziwen didn't expect Wang Xiaojie himself to be so vengeful and not heed his advice. He still summoned the royal stewards over. They didn't dare to make a move in his dormitory, instead waiting for Hu Hao to leave the room before capturing him. Wang Xiaojie hoped that Hu Hao would resist, because if he dared to attack the royal stewards no one would say anything if they killed him. However, Hu Hao didn't act rashly. His wise choice left Wang Xiaojie greatly disappointed. Their leader stopped Wang Xiaojie from hitting Hu Hao further. He said in a deep voice, "You can't do this here. I'll bring him back and deal with him. Don't forget where we are." Wang Xiaojie rubbed his palms together as he said, "Yes, elder cousin. You must be harsh on him, allow me to accompany you in this." The leader shook his head and replied, "No, you can't. It's better if you remain in the academy. In this way, you can deny any involvement in this matter. You're not young anymore, why can't you use your brain?" Xian Ziwen already pleaded for this guy's case, and the matter was settled. Do you really want to get in trouble for getting involved? Just act like you don't know what's going on. We know what to do, right? Wang Xiaojie was a little unconvinced, but he still agreed. After all, he wasn't actually that dumb. After scanning his surroundings and ascertaining that no one was around, he scurried off. Their leader came in front of Hu Hao and said, "I'm sorry, you can only blame your bad luck. You dared to touch a member of the imperial family? You're from Shrek, aren't you? We'll have a nice little talk when we get back." Hu Hao could clearly sense his ill intentions from the tone of his voice. He knew that this person was much more powerful than Wang Xiaojie. In his hands, he would probably suffer. But he had no urge to resist what may come. "I just hope that you won't regret doing this." One of the Soul Kings slapped Hu Hao's face and said coldly, "You dare to be rude in front of the royal stewards? I guess you're sick of living. Captain, you can just hand him to me when we get back." The leader waved him off and said, "Let's go. We'll talk when we get back." 2 Soul Kings roughly pushed Hu Hao forward, and he cooperated with them, following along obediently. While he appeared indifferent, he wasn't panicked at all. Shrek Academy's reputation was very influential in every empire. Shumorchen had merely been curious when he made this trip. He wanted to see how outstanding a Shrek Academy student was. If not, he wouldn't have bothered with Wang Xiaojie's matter. Hu Hao appeared very young indeed. However, Shumorchen could sense that he wasn't that simple. He didn't panic, not even in front of so many people. Although he did make some threats, he didn't curse after he was hit by Wang Xiaojie. He was very calm and composed. This surely meant that he had some form of backer. As he thought till here, he developed another idea. He instructed one of his subordinates, "Go and inform the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy that we have a student called Hu Hao assisting us with an investigation." His subordinate was a little puzzled. However, he didn't dare to question his orders, and went about doing what he was told. Hu Hao smiled and said, "It's always nice to make friends with intellectuals. How should I address you?" Shumorchen laughed. "Young man, it seems like you're not anxious at all. However, you don't belong to the Sun Moon Empire. No matter who your backer is, I can't return empty-handed this time. You touched a member of the imperial family, and I must teach you a lesson for doing so. Let's see whether your backer will get here quickly enough. If your backer arrives late though, don't blame me if things get out of hand." Hu Hao continued to wear a smile on his face. "I can tell that you're not that close to Wang Xiaojie. It seems he's not that important to the imperial family either. Why should you seek trouble for yourself? I'm not from the Sun Moon Empire, but I'm a very hot potato. It's not too late to turn back." Shumorchen's expression turned abysmal, and a vicious look flashed in his eyes. "I don't need you to tell me what to do. Take him away. I want to see what kind of trouble I'll get into." Hu Hao didn't speak out further, and listened to Shumorchen. He walked out of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy and got onto a luxurious horse-drawn cart. Then they proceeded towards the city center. What? Hu Hao was taken by the royal stewards? Lin Jiai was anxious when he heard the news. Bang! He smashed his table. Nonsense! The royal stewards dare to make an arrest in the academy without consulting us? What nonsense is this? The member of the royal stewards was unbothered by Lin Jiai's rage. Like Wang Xiaojie or Xu Morchen, he was also a direct descendant or from a branch family of the imperial family. He snorted, "If you dare, you can talk to our captain. Anyway, I've already consulted with you, as ordered." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Lin Jiai didn't stop him. Hu Yuhao had already been captured, thus, there was no point in messing with the messenger. He stood behind his desk and pondered for a brief moment. After that, he walked out of his office. Jing Hongchen had once told him how important Hu Yuhao was, informing him not to allow Hu Yuhao to suffer from any indignation or harm, apart from preventing him to learn anything substantial in the academy. It hasn't been easy for him. He was a little enraged when he found out that Xian Ziwen had sent Hu Yuhao out for training without informing him. Fortunately, Hu Yuhao returned safely. But who knew that he would be captured the day after he returned? Wang Xiaojie must be fooling around. Lin Jiai was a Class 8 Soul Engineer, but he couldn't offend the royal stewards. After all, the royal stewards members all had complicated backgrounds. That was why he quickly rushed to the illustrious Virtue Hall. He had to report this to Jing Hongchen right away. He knew that Jing Hongchen's precious grandchildren were involved in this exchange. What? Hu Yuhao has been captured by the royal stewards? Zhu Zi exclaimed, "Hallmaster." Lin Jiai rushed in hurriedly, "Rascal! Why didn't you knock?" Jing Hongchen was furious. Lin Jiai knelt down on one knee frantically. "Hallmaster, Hu Yuhao has been captured by the royal stewards." "What?" Jing Hongchen's eyes widened in shock. "Royal stewards? What's going on?" Lin Jiai was aware of the conflict between Hu Yuhao and Wang Xiaojie. He was aware that Hu Yuhao had knocked Wang Xiaojie out for several days with his spiritual-type soul skill. Xian Ziwen had approached him regarding this matter. Lin Jiai recounted everything to Jing Hongchen immediately. Jing Hongchen's expression turned extremely dismal after hearing his words. Are the royal stewards trying to rebel? How dare they arrest someone in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy? Who's backing them? I will deal with them on behalf of His Majesty. Let's go. He walked out of the room as he finished speaking. Lin Jiai warned him, "Hallmaster, I'm afraid that you must hurry. The royal stewards have resorted to underhanded methods. I fear that Hu Yuhao might already." "All right." A cold light flashed in Jing Hongchen's eyes. He was obviously furious. He wasn't concerned about Hu Yuhao's life, but it was imperative that nothing happened to a Shrek exchange student in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. This would most certainly get his grandchildren into trouble. He didn't think that Hu Yuhao was a brilliant soul engineer. He only insisted that Hu Yuhao join the exchange because he needed someone as collateral against his grandchildren here in the academy. At the same time, he was well aware of Hu Yuhao's significance to Shrek Academy. He had an ultimate martial soul, and twin martial souls on top of that. Jing Hongchen coveted him. However, he had learned that he couldn't buy Hu Yuhao when he first met Hu Yuhao beside Elder Mu. If something really happens to Hu Yuhao, Jing Hongchen was afraid to imagine any further. It wasn't just a matter of whether his grandchildren would return. He was afraid that all of Shrek Academy might turn violent and clash with the Sun Moon Empire. They might even attack the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. He had been to Shrek Academy before. There was an abundance of powerful individuals there. Even the body sect had been forced to retreat, and he had been forced to leave a Class 9 soul tool behind before he was allowed to return. On the surface, he wasn't willing to admit his fear of Shrek Academy. However, he was truly terrified of them. Shrek Academy had a long history. They didn't earn their name as the top academy on the continent for nothing. Shrek Academy possessed great sway within the three empires of the Dolor continent, and even the Sun Moon Empire didn't dare to act recklessly when it came to them. Sun Moon Empire's Imperial Palace. Zhu Zi retracted her wings and descended around 1,000 meters away from the Imperial Palace. She had no choice but to do so, as flying above the Radiant City was prohibited, especially in the central region. The Soul Engineer Guard stopped her in the air and demanded that she land immediately. Zhu Zi retrieved a dark gold writ. There was a flaming dragon carved onto it. The Soul Engineer Guards immediately knelt when they saw this writ and bowed respectfully. Zhu Zi ignored them and quickly ran towards the Imperial Palace. Nothing must happen to him. Nothing must happen to him. She was well aware of the royal steward's underhanded tactics. Even though he had just been arrested, Wu Yuhao was unlikely to come out unharmed. Greetings to your highness. Juzi hurried a few steps forward and knelt. The youth in white waved her off, and a gentle strand of soul power lifted her. All right, you don't have to be so formal in front of me. Your heartbeat is irregular. Did something happen? Juzi had been anxious before she entered, but was much calmer now. She said in a deep voice, Your Highness, an opportunity has arisen. We need to seize it, oh? The youth in white was curious as he asked, What opportunity? Juzi answered, It's like this. One of my fellow students under teacher Xian is Wang Xiaojie, a young man from a branch family of the imperial family. He was involved in a fight with a Shrek Academy exchange student several days ago. Not long ago, teacher Xian sent me and Cuckoo to experiment on the all-terrain exploration soul tool with this exchange student. From my observations, this Shrek student is extraordinary. The prince appeared to be interested. What do you mean? Juzi answered, This person has twin martial souls. There's never been anyone with twin martial souls in the Sun Moon Empire. Interesting. The young man in white gestured for Juzi to continue. Juzi said, From what I know, Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen are also involved in the exchange of students with Shrek. You should know their importance to the Hall Master. This exchange student also holds a similarly important position in Shrek. Wang Xiaojie called for the royal stewards this morning and arrested this exchange student. If the Hall Master is to learn of this, the prince immediately comprehended what she was saying. It's not a simple matter if the Hall Master is involved. And your idea is? Juzi replied, The Hall Master holds an important position in the Sun Moon Empire. Many imperial family members want to get close to him, but His Majesty once ordered that no imperial family member should have any contact with the illustrious Virtue Hall. No one dares to go against this edict. The prince nodded and said, I am under the same restrictions. Juzi continued to speak, The royal stewards have been too brazen over these past few years. Regardless of the fact that a Shrek Academy exchange student is involved, they should have informed us before making an arrest. The Hall Master should be enraged. While it's not convenient for you to pay a visit to the Hall Master, I believe that the Hall Master will remember you if you can settle this matter before it blows up. The prince revealed a look of approval. Very good, Juzi. You're getting smarter and smarter. Your observation is very keen this time around. Come on, follow me to find the royal stewards. Their captain is Xu Mochen, am I right? This rascal is getting too arrogant. It's time to deal with him. Juzi quickly walked behind the prince. The sound of wheels rotating could be heard, and the young man was pushed out. Yes, this young man was seated in a wheelchair. He had practically no legs at all. While he might be a cripple, he was the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince, the heir apparent of the Sun Moon Empire. Juzi met Xu Qianran after her parents died and she became a vagabond. Xu Qianran wasn't crippled back then. He adopted her and sent her to the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy to study. Juzi didn't let Xu Qianran down. Her cultivation grew quickly as she cultivated tirelessly. Xu Qianran trusted her a lot due to their special relationship, while Juzi was also very loyal towards him. Juzi wheeled Xu Qianran out of his pavilion, and his guards quickly followed. The royal steward's headquarters was in the imperial palace. Although it was merely in a corner of the palace, the location demonstrated its pertinence to the imperial family. Juzi, how's your cultivation? Xu Qianran asked gently. Juzi replied, My progress has been slow. After I became a Class 5 soul engineer, my mastery seems to have reached a bottleneck. My soul power increases very slowly, and taking medicine doesn't seem to help. Although my research of soul tools continues to see improvements, my soul power has stagnated. I'm confident of making it into the illustrious Virtue Hall, but I'm afraid I'll need 3 to 5 years before I can become a Class 6 soul engineer. It will take even longer as I progress. Xu Qianran smiled and said, It's okay, Juzi. Do you know something? I like your honesty. There's hardly anyone who's as honest as you around me, no matter how close they are to me. Juzi lowered her head and said, You gave me my life, and everything that I have. Xu Qianran shrugged and said, Let's not bring that up. You repaid the favor when you took 2 knives meant me. Juzi, my father's condition has been deteriorating. I don't think he has much longer to live. If you think that your development as a soul engineer is too slow, I hope that you can consider leaving the academy to help me. Didn't you always want revenge? I'll let you join the military. I'll slowly transfer the trump card I have in the military to you and let you strut your stuff. What? You can't do that. Your Highness, I'm not up to it, Juzi said hurriedly. An anxious look appeared in her eyes. However, a tinge of happiness also flashed through the depths of her eyes in that instant. Xu Qianran patted the hand that she had placed on a wheelchair and sighed. How can I lead the military in this condition? The military is a force that every emperor must be able to control. You're the person I trust the most. I'd be relieved to hand the military to you, Your Highness. Xu Qianran said, you're only lacking in terms of your aura. But your intelligence and military knowledge are great. You're also well versed in soul tools. I trust you completely. I'll gradually let you enter the core circle of my military forces. I'll tell them that you'll be my wife, the wife of the crown prince, as well as the future empress, Your Highness. Juzi exclaimed and stopped pushing the wheelchair. Although she was anxious to save Hui Yuhao, she couldn't reveal her intention. She knelt down in front of the wheelchair. Your Highness, I'm not worthy. Xu Qianran smiled and caressed her head. He said, how are you not fit? In my heart, this has nothing to do with the bigger picture or to enable me to succeed the throne. I need to have a wife. But this person must be someone I can trust. You are aware of my condition, and you're also the only person I trust completely. I'll give you a proper status and authority. Your only role is to help me stabilize my throne. I'll give you the strength to seek your vengeance and the encouragement to go ahead with your revenge. I've no intentions other than to rule the entire continent. I'll make the Sun Moon Empire glorious, and the continent will depend on us once again. As he spoke these words, his calm gaze became passionate. Juzi bit her lower lip lightly. She was probably the only one who understood Xu Qianran in this world. The injuries he had sustained hadn't just affected his legs, his manly capabilities were affected too. Juzi had waited for a long time for this day. Without Xu Qianran, how could she exact revenge? However, she was truly loyal to Xu Qianran, too. It was just that Xu Qianran didn't know that someone else had appeared in Juzi's heart over the past half-month. All right, let's rush over. Otherwise, the royal stewards will really cause a huge headache for everyone. Xu Qianran extended his hand to lift Juzi up. Juzi was grateful, and moved behind him again. She pushed his wheelchair along quickly. Hui Yuhao was pushed into this room. There were all types of torture equipment in the interrogation room. Hui Yuhao didn't even recognize many of them. Tie him to the dragon carving pillar. One of the Soul Emperors gestured, and two Soul Kings immediately brought Hui Yuhao in front of a steel rack. This steel rack looked a little weird. It had the shape of a cross, with many holes in it. Hui Yuhao's handcuffs were separated, but this didn't affect the restraint on his soul power. The two Soul Kings tied him to the cross directly. The rack was extremely cold, and reeked of blood. Hui Yuhao's pupils started to shrink. Although the handcuffs could restrain his soul power, they couldn't restrain his spiritual power. His spiritual detection might be more difficult to use without the support of his soul power, but he was still able to detect up to a certain range. He instantly understood what this rack was supposed to do. There were metal spikes in each of the holes. These spikes were 3 inches long, and were positioned at very precise spots. These spots weren't located at a person's vital areas. It meant that the person controlling this rack could nail Hui Yuhao's entire body to the rack without killing him instantly. Young fellow, I suggest that you be honest. Tell us everything you need to tell us. The Soul Emperor who had issued the order sat behind a table and looked at Hui Yuhao apathetically. The rest also stood to the side. Someone took a pen and paper and was about to record the details of the interrogation. Xu Mochen didn't enter the interrogation room. No one knew where he had gone. Hui Yuhao answered, I don't know what you're talking about. The Soul Emperor said coldly, you don't know? Tell us how you harmed Wang Xiaojie and caused him to sustain critical injuries. If you deny it, don't blame us for torturing you. Hui Yuhao laughed, and wore a mocking look on his face. If I tell you what you demand just like this, wouldn't that just give you a better reason to torture me? Since you're going to torture me anyway, why do I have to give you a better reason to do so? I'm going to give you a suggestion, don't touch me. Otherwise, you'll suffer. Second brother, is it time to start? I've not heard someone screaming on this rack for a long time. The splattering of blood is a beautiful sight, indeed. 81 spikes piercing different parts of the body before turning and moving in place. It's beautiful. Hu Yuhao clenched his fists tightly and said coldly, "Have you really considered it carefully?" The Soul King was hostile. "Young fellow, you still dare to threaten us in the interrogation room?" Number 4 laughed viciously, and his right hand grabbed hold of the switch behind him. He pressed it down, and a piercing, rumbling sound filled the room. The spikes started to extend from the holes on the dragon carving pillar. Impossible. How can he still use a soul skill even after he's been cuffed by the dragon binding seal? Wait, it's a soul tool. Second brother revealed an appalled look on his face. Although he wasn't a soul engineer, he was still familiar with soul tools since he was a member of the Sun Moon Empire's imperial family. The dragon binding seal was very effective in restraining a soul master. If Hu Yuhao was able to activate his soul tool even though his soul power was restrained by the dragon binding seal, this meant that his soul tool's class was higher than the dragon binding seal. The dragon binding seal was already a class 6 soul tool. What class was Hu Yuhao's defensive soul tool? Even at this point, these arrogant royal stewards didn't realize anything was amiss. Their eyes brightened, and greed started to fill them. Even if Hu Yuhao only possessed a class 7 defensive soul tool, it would be worth a huge price on the market. If they divided the money, they would still benefit greatly. While they were royal stewards, their salary wasn't that high. In addition, they weren't direct descendants of the imperial family, which made their statuses very awkward in the imperial city. They obtained all their money through ill-gotten gains as royal stewards. You still dare to resist? Second brother snorted, even if your defensive soul tool is superior than the dragon binding seal in terms of class, your soul power is limited. I want to see how long you can hold on. When your soul power is depleted, the spikes will pierce through your body forcefully. You'll be torn apart instantly. Hu Yuhao sighed in his heart. One could be spared because of heaven's misdoings, but one couldn't live because of his own sins. Hu Yuhao didn't want to cause any trouble, but they were too underhanded. If he allowed them to torture him, he might not survive until help arrived. It seemed like he had to take care of them first. Old fellow, who do you think you are? How dare you cause trouble here? Old Fu was too arrogant and didn't bother to think about who it was that had just barged in. However, Jing Hongchen's eyes were already filled with killing intent before he had even finished speaking. He made a pulling motion with his right hand, and a powerful suction force dragged Old Fu over. Seeing that things weren't going right, second brother leapt towards Jing Hongchen along with the other royal stewards. Scram! Jing Hongchen roared, and a gust of milky white gas blew the 5 of them away. His 9 soul rings also appeared at this point. Title Dolor. Second brother exclaimed. Although he was in physical pain, as he hit a corner of the wall, he was more affected by the shock that he had just experienced. The Sun Moon Empire couldn't compare to the Star Luo Empire in terms of the quantity of their title Dolor. Title Dolor were highly regarded in every empire. No matter how arrogant the royal stewards were, they didn't dare to offend a title Dolor. Lin Jiai had rushed to Hu Yuhao by now and stopped the dragon carving pillar immediately. He was shocked as he saw Hu Yuhao's bloody body. He quickly retrieved a small white jade vase from his storage-type soul tool. After a moment of hesitation, he took out an azure green pill and stuffed it into Hu Yuhao's mouth. After that, he released Hu Yuhao from the dragon carving pillar. Jing Hongchen furrowed his brow. If their statuses were different, he would have killed them all. However, they were royal stewards, and had close ties with the imperial family. He couldn't go all out against them. He took up a few steps towards Hu Yuhao and asked, "How are you?" Hu Yuhao looked a little pale, but his calm demeanor left Jing Hongchen uncomfortable. Jing Hongchen wished he would kicked up a fuss. A chill rose in Jing Hongchen's heart as he watched Hu Yuhao. I just didn't think that the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy would be unable to protect its own students. While Hu Yuhao didn't sound very forceful, his words struck right at Jing Hongchen's heart. Jing Hongchen's wrath was stirred, and he unwittingly clenched his fist tightly. His obstinate and self-opinionated personality had always been his weak point. This wasn't a conclusion derived by Hu Yuhao. Rather, this was the verdict of Shrek Academy after they had studied him for years. Let's return before we speak. The Academy will give you a satisfactory explanation regarding this matter. Jing Hongchen suppressed his fury before turning away. Lin Jiai hurriedly slung Hu Yuhao's arm over his shoulder and led him out of the interrogation room. The pill Lin Jiai had fed Hu Yuhao was indeed extraordinary. A warm feeling quickly engulfed Hu Yuhao's entire body. He could clearly sense the reduction in pain as the warmth circulated his body. The wounds that were bleeding quickly healed, and even his soul power was restored. However, a voice sounded from outside before Jing Hongchen could walk out of the interrogation room. The Crown Prince arrives. After Xu Qianran returned, he erupted in fury after enduring for a while. He had captured the second prince and his charges in one fell swoop. Eventually, the second prince had died a horrible death, and Xu Qianran reaffirmed his position as the crown prince even though he was disabled. This showed how frightening Xu Qianran was. It won't be a problem. Xu Mochen wasn't qualified to bicker with Xu Qianran. Even his master, the third prince, wouldn't dare to do so. Unless his father was around, Xu Qianran would never bow down to anyone. Xu Mochen was cursing Wang Xiaojie in his heart now. Not only did the arrest attract the attention of the Hall Master of the illustrious Virtue Hall, it drove the Crown Prince to pay a visit in person. This wasn't looking likely to be resolved easily. The door of the interrogation room opened. A gloomy-looking Jing Hongchen walked out, with Lin Jiayi and Hui Yuhao following behind him. When Zhu Zi saw Hui Yuhao covered in blood, her footsteps stiffened slightly and her expression tensed up. However, she tried her best to restrain her emotions. She understood Xu Qianran. If she came off as overly passionate towards Hui Yuhao, then Hui Yuhao was likely to get in trouble. Zhu Zi was more than well aware that in Xu Qianran's mind, she belonged to him. "Greetings to your highness," Jing Hongchen called out, but only nodded his head. What was his status? In the Sun Moon Empire, he was equivalent to a grand advisor. Even the current emperor treated him with respect and wouldn't demand that he stick to formalities. Xu Qianran bowed slightly seated in his wheelchair. "Greetings, Hall Master. I'm disabled, and it's slightly inconvenient for me to fully pay my respects. Please forgive me for this." Jing Hongchen didn't expect Xu Qianran to be so formal. He knew a little about Xu Qianran, and regarded him very highly. Not only was he ambitious, but he had ways to get things done too. If he succeeded the throne, he was bound to bring prosperity to the Sun Moon Empire. However, a surprise attack left the Crown Prince disabled. This made Jing Hongchen a little hesitant. Even with his prominent position in the Sun Moon Empire, the price to pay for supporting the wrong side was very hefty. That was why he decided to watch from the sidelines. Whoever succeeded the throne in the end would need his support regardless. All he needed to do was wait. "Crown Prince, you don't have to be so ceremonious." Jing Hongchen gestured. Jing Hongchen's shock had already disappeared by then. He smiled and replied, "How could I not remember you? When you became a title Dolor, I was still stagnant at the Sol Dolor level. I didn't expect that after more than 10 years you'd enter the Imperial City." Shui Chen answered him, "This is not the place to speak. I'll pay you a visit when we return. We can catch up then." After he finished speaking, he lowered his head behind Xu Qianran again. He looked just like a loyal servant. The ground was long since stained red with fresh blood. However, Xu Qianran didn't even glance at the mess. He smiled at Jing Hongchen. "Hall Master, are you satisfied with this answer?" Jing Hongchen furrowed his brow and bowed to him slightly. He said, "This is an internal matter. I don't dare to comment. My student is gravely injured, so if your highness has no other instructions for me, I shall return first." Xu Qianran nodded his head slightly and said, "Please do, Hall Master. In my eyes, you'll always be a respected elder. You don't have to be so formal with me." Jing Hongchen nodded and walked out. Lin Jiayi followed behind him, supporting Hui Yuhao. Xu Qianran turned his head to look at Xu Mochen now. He said, "Mochen, at times, you will have to pay the price for standing on the wrong side. Please tell Uncle that. Let's go." After he finished, he gestured behind him, and Zhu Zi immediately pushed his wheelchair to the exit. His servants followed. After what Shui Chen had done earlier, who dared to underestimate the servants of Xu Qianran? Zhu Zi heaved a sigh of relief. Although Hui Yuhao's grave injuries broke her heart, given Jing Hongchen's reaction, she reckoned that he should be fine. Jing Hongchen would have gone berserk if Hui Yuhao had died at the hands of the royal stewards. No one in the Sun Moon Empire would have been able to stop him, not that anyone was likely to interfere in this matter. However, Zhu Zi was secretly impressed with the Crown Prince. He'd settled the matter decisively, and exploited Jing Hongchen's presence to get rid of 5 competent cronies under the third prince. He even dealt a harsh blow to Xu Mochen. He sold Jing Hongchen a favor and dragged him into the situation. It didn't matter whether Jing Hongchen admitted or denied anything. Things would still sound the same when this matter spread. Everyone would believe that the Crown Prince had killed a few people because he wanted to appease the Hall Master of the illustrious Virtue Hall. Zhu Zi was relieved that Xu Qianran didn't pay too much attention to Hui Yu Hao. It might have been because of his injuries, but this was what Zhu Zi wanted. Otherwise, Hui Yu Hao might be at risk in the Sun Moon Empire. Hui Yu Hao was clear-headed throughout the whole ordeal. He had stopped using Hongchen's blessing because he could sense Jing Hongchen coming. The third prince was the closest competitor to the crown prince, since he had the support of the prince that controlled the imperial clan. After this matter, the third prince was likely to have been angered even though he didn't dare to say anything. What a Xu Qianran! It was no wonder that Jing Hongchen had regarded highly him in the past. Even while he was disabled, he remained a determined person. He didn't lose his sharpness due to his disability. Jing Hongchen turned back to look at Hui Yu Hao, and he became even more depressed. Hui Yu Hao was quite an actor, and Jing Hongchen still had to settle his matter. Even as the Dean of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy and the Hallmaster of the illustrious Virtue Hall, Jing Hongchen didn't think it was wise to use underhanded methods to deal this. However, it wasn't that easy to give a proper explanation either. Hui Yu Hao was soon sent to the Academy's infirmary, and Jing Hongchen called for Fan Yu. Come to think of it, Fan Yu hadn't seen Hui Yu Hao for a long time. When he saw Hui Yu Hao lying on a bed in the infirmary covered in blood, his heart was about to jump out of his chest. He was dumbstruck, and his blood boiled. He was about to turn violent. Teacher Fan Yu, don't be agitated. Hui Yu Hao is fine. He's only sustained superficial wounds. Jiayi explained the situation to Teacher Fan Yu, Jing Hongchen said gently. Fan Yu's eyes burned with fury and he interrupted, there's no need to explain anything. Hallmaster, I only want to ask you one thing. If Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen were to sustain such injuries in Shrek Academy, how would you react? I won't say any more. You should know what to do. After he finished speaking, he turned and left. He didn't even look at Hui Yu Hao again. Jing Hongchen was stunned as he watched Fan Yu walking away. He was puzzled. Fan Yu was leaving just like that? He didn't even bother to listen to an explanation or check up on Hui Yu Hao. What was going on? He didn't know that Hui Yu Hao had used his spiritual detection to share what he thought with Fan Yu just as Fan Yu was about to erupt. Hui Yu Hao also told Fan Yu that he was fine. Fan Yu's fury wasn't a pretense. However, he had already calmed down when he spoke to Jing Hongchen. Hallmaster, what do we do? Lin Jiayi asked anxiously. Jing Hongchen's expression was extremely grim now. It's all Wang Xiaoji's fault. How dare he lead an outsider to make an arrest in the academy? Expel him immediately, and kick him out of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Lin Jiayi hesitated. But we don't have proof that he was the one who did it. Jing Hongchen was a little vulgar as he interrupted, why do I need any proof to expel a student? Follow my instructions, okay? Lin Jiayi was petrified. He was an intelligent person, since he was able to become the teaching director. He could subtly sense something from Jing Hongchen's words. It seemed like Jing Hongchen had made a decision on the Empire's current situation. After pondering for a moment, Jing Hongchen said, the captain of the royal stewards, Xu Mochen, is the son of a prince in the imperial clan. I have no authority over him, but I'll make him apologize to you personally. The academy has to bear some of the responsibility for this incident too. From now onwards, you can bring back all the materials you use for creating soul tools from the academy. However, this doesn't include blueprints or formation arrays. You don't have to be tested either. When you recover, ask Xian Ziwen to bring you into the illustrious Virtue Hall. This will help you in your progress and increase your knowledge. Although Elder Mu has passed away, he's always been the elder that I've respected the most. If anyone dares to provoke you in the academy, you must tell me. Hui Yu Hao revealed a look of gratitude as he realized that his target was about to be fulfilled. Thank you, Hallmaster, for granting me this opportunity. I won't let you down. I'll be studious. Jing Hongchen was irked by Hui Yu Hao's sincere expression. He squeezed out a smile and stood up before saying, all right, rest well then. I'll ask them to give you the best medicine for your treatment, okay? Hui Yu Hao nodded his head respectfully. Alas, he didn't suffer for nothing. He. After his wounds were taken care of, Hui Yu Hao was sent to a ward in the infirmary to rest. He was given the best care due to Jing Hongchen's concern over his condition. Even his meals were much better. Although they weren't as good as Shrek Academy's meals, he was well nourished. Although he didn't lose as much blood as the previous time, Hui Yu Hao was still tired, as he had tried to make the act as real as possible. The stinging pain in his back was greatly relieved with the help of medicine, but he became groggy from it. At this point, the door opened slowly, and someone walked in. Hui Yuhao was very alert, and he unleashed his spiritual detection. However, he became relieved once again. It was Cuckoo. Yuhao, Yuhao. Cuckoo came to his bedside and called to him. Hui Yuhao was very fatigued at this point. He didn't want to scam Cuckoo either, thus he decided to pretend that he was sleeping. I hope this is the last time I will cry. Soon, I will leave the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. I don't know if we will ever meet again in the future, but I hope not. Because I don't want to face you on the battlefield. I just hope that you can live a good, peaceful, and happy life. Find someone you love and marry her. Have pretty and adorable kids. A normal life. I know that this piece is impossible for you, but I still wish it for you. How I want to be that woman. But alas, I can't, I have to go. Juicy turned her back to him. Despite our short time together, I still want to give you a present. Here, she became quiet. Every single one of her words was imprinted on Hui Yuhao's heart, particularly that line, a good, peaceful, and happy life. It almost made Hui Yuhao cry. He did not dare to open his eyes, because he did not know how he should face her. His breathing became rougher and deeper. He suddenly felt a fresh and clear gush of air. It was clear, but warm and moist, too. Juicy's supple lips landed on his face as she kissed him gently. That kiss brimmed with warmth, as well as an indescribable sadness. When her lips left his face, tears rolled uncontrollably from Hui Yuhao's eyes. At that moment, Juicy had left an imprint of herself on Hui Yuhao's heart. Even if it was not love, it was a permanent mark. Juicy wiped her tears, looked at Hui Yuhao and said softly, "This is my first kiss. I wanted to kiss your lips, but I did not obtain your consent. Hence, I decided to kiss your face. Leave your first kiss for your fated girl. I'm going, don't let me see you again." He gently wriggled his body while Juicy stood up. Her upper teeth bit down on her lower lip as she tried hard not to cry. Turning her back to him, she dashed out of the ward. The moment she entered, she knew that Hui Yuhao was awake. Hui Yuhao had a special trait. Even though he did not know it, the top of his ears would be stuck tightly to his head when he was awake. When he was meditating or sleeping, there would be a slight gap. Even Wang Dong had not noticed this change. However, Zhu Zi, who had been taking care of him for the past few days, noticed. He could hear the doors closing. Hui Yuhao slowly opened his teary eyes, and suddenly realized how helpless he was. He wanted very much, from the bottom of his heart, to help her. However, he knew that it was impossible. Her enemy was his country. Her path was the opposite of the one he wanted to take. He could not ask her to abandon her vision and force her to be with him. If she did, would she still be Zhu Zi? "Sister Zhu Zi, don't you know that I want you to have a peaceful and normal life, too?" Hui Yuhao sighed as he calmed himself. He could still clearly remember that when he was in Shrek Academy, there was a special lesson on psychology in the Ultimate Soldier Plan. Their teacher had taught them that those who wanted to achieve great things must be cold and unfeeling. Great emotional turbulence would affect one's chances of success. Hui Yuhao tried to control his emotions. While he thought that he did a good job, as did his teachers, it was apparent that he was not there yet. The next day, at noon, Hui Yuhao received news from Cuckoo that Zhu Zi had withdrawn from school. No one knew where she went. Even though Hui Yuhao was mentally prepared, he was still stunned for almost 15 minutes. Slowly, he came back to his senses. "Stop being shocked. Where do you think she went?" Cuckoo asked in a depressed tone. Hui Yuhao shook his head and said, "I don't know, but I think she is working for her vision." Hui Yuhao recovered quickly. 3 days later, he left the ward and returned to his dormitory to rest. In reality, his wounds were almost fully recovered. He did not give much more thought to Zhu Zi. Instead, he devoted all his energy to cultivation. With Jing Hongchen's tricks, he could soon study in the illustrious Virtue Hall. That was his objective. To avoid arousing Jing Hongchen's suspicion, Hui Yuhao cultivated in the dormitory for 5 days before he went to look for Xian Ziwen. He told his teacher that his wounds had completely healed, and he could now study in illustrious Virtue Hall. Xian Ziwen looked at the youth before him. While it had only been a few days, for some reason, Hui Yuhao looked more mature all of a sudden. This feeling was strange and indescribable. However, he knew that he was right. "Yuhao, do you know that, from a national perspective, I don't want to bring you inside. The Hall Master has underestimated your intelligence." Xian Ziwen frowned as he shook his head. Hui Yuhao smiled slightly and said, Teacher Xian, you are not a politician, but only a researcher. I believe that I can help you further refine your research. After all, I remember our promise at the start. You must remember it too. Xian Ziwen laughed. Of course I remember it. Okay, don't forget that the hall is not like here. Your every word and action will be under surveillance. Listen more, study more, look more, think more, and talk less. Try not to interact so much with the other Shreks. Stay by my side, and you will be fine. Yes, sir, Hui Yuhao said respectfully. Come with me, Xian Ziwen told him, standing up and bringing Hui Yuhao out. In the lab, Zimu took a look at the youth accompanying teacher Xian and seemed shocked. Cuckoo, however, was excited. She seemed happier than the time she had first entered the illustrious Virtue Hall. Illustrious Virtue Hall was the core of the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. From the outside, it appeared to be an ordinary building. Once he entered, however, Hui Yuhao realized that the hall was much bigger than he had first thought. Illustrious Virtue Hall, like the extravagant auction hall of the Star Luo Empire, were both underground. However, in terms of size, they were simply incomparable. After he entered the ordinary-looking building that was no greater than 500 square meters in size, Xian Ziwen brought him through 3 checkpoints, each guarded by a soul master and a soul tool. When he entered the interior of the building, Hui Yuhao could see 20 elevators that formed the shape of an arch. Every single elevator looked metallic, and could fit more than 10 people. Xian Ziwen brought Hui Yuhao into the first elevator and scanned his ID card on a soul tool. Then, he gripped the metal pole in the center of the elevator and inserted his soul power. Slowly, the elevator descended. The entire process took 2 minutes to complete. Hui Yuhao took note of the depth of their descent. To his surprise, it was more than 100 meters. As they descended, the interior of the elevator was completely sealed, and he could not see what was outside. A small white strip of light illuminated the interior of the elevator. Some of them are interns from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. They will only work here for a short time before they continue their studies. In Illustrious Virtue Hall, research is conducted in the form of small groups. Every group has a different number of members. Normally, they will have more than 5 tables to work at. Other than the public research spaces, there are some secret labs. Those who can work in the secret labs must be at least rank 8 and above. Notice the badge on each of their chests. The badges of Illustrious Virtue Hall are different from the outside world. The background is the sun and moon, and stars dot the sky. Each star represents a single rank. As he said that, Xian Ziwen took out an 8-star badge and placed it on his chest. Once one reaches rank 9, one will have reached the highest and most powerful level in our country. They will be offered maximum protection. In Illustrious Virtue Hall right now, including the Hall Master, there are 4 rank 9 soul engineers. The Hall Master is the youngest. Everyone doing research here could be said to be a disciple of one of the 4 most powerful soul engineers, including me and you. My teacher is one of the 4. Hui Yuhao had been in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy for quite some time, but he could clearly sense that he was learning more today than the rest of his days here combined. As he listened to Xian Ziwen, he did not dare to open his mouth. All he did was memorize what he said and nod along. Xian Ziwen was pleased with his response. He smiled slightly and said, "Okay, let's go. We can descend. You will be given your own table and I will give you a topic to research. If you have questions, ask me directly. I know you can use your spiritual power to send messages. I have faith that you will do well." Under Xian Ziwen's guidance, the 2 of them walked for 10 minutes before they reached an empty table. Xian Ziwen took out an ID card and a rank 5 soul engineer badge. He fixed the badge to Hui Yuhao's chest and scanned the ID card against a machine by the side of the table. Then, he used his own ID card as further verification. Keep this card. The next time you enter, as well as when you use table number 1238, you will need this card. After he scanned his card, the many buttons under the table lit up. Looking at them carefully, there were at least 50 of them. Every single button had a small logo, and each of them was colored differently. Through Xian Ziwen's explanations, Hui Yuhao discovered that each of these buttons was linked to a different material. Once he pressed it, the corresponding material would appear. According to the rarity and cost of the material, a different amount of the material would appear. Each table was rationed a certain amount. For example, each table could only use 100 grams of mithril. The tiny manual scared Hui Yuhao. Only now did he realize the significance of the table before him. The ordinary-looking table was full of different functions. The table before him had all the functions of the big manufacturing tools in Shrek Academy. The table contained abrasives, pressurized equipment, and high-temperature manufacturing tools. One could say that with the right materials, it was not impossible to manufacture rank 7 and rank 8 Soul tools from this table. Hui Yuhao spent the entire day reading the manual and trying out the functions of the table. However, no one knew that he had used his spiritual power to scan the table. Lunch and dinner would be sent to the table by assistants. From his observations, Hui Yuhao realized that some Soul engineers did not even bother to eat. They had yet to touch their lunch even at dinner time. Under these circumstances, the assistants would remind them to eat. When the completely exhausted Hui Yuhao left the illustrious Virtue Hall with Xianziwen, the sky outside was almost completely dark. So, how do you feel? Xianziwen asked with a smile. Hui Yuhao blurted out, time seems to pass quicker inside. Xianziwen looked at him in surprise and said, that's right. You integrate fast, it's not easy for one to obtain such a feeling. I thought that you might even find it boring. Hui Yuhao smiled. I'm just afraid I won't have enough time. Teacher Xian, I shall head back to rest. Xianziwen nodded and said, go, you will enter the illustrious Virtue Hall by yourself tomorrow. Use your ID card. Once you are inside, you will be scanned to ascertain your identity. I'm your guarantor. If anything happens, I will be implicated too. As he said that, his gaze seemed to deepen. Teacher Xian, please don't worry. I will not cause trouble for you. Hui Yuhao said respectfully. Back in his dorm room, Hui Yuhao carefully used his spiritual detection to sense if there were any surveillance Soul tools in his room. After he was sure that there were none, he began to draw on a piece of paper. The table's makeup was too complicated. He spent almost 4 hours coming up with a rough outline. Tonight, he could only accomplish so much. There were at least 10 formation arrays in the table. Each of them alone did not appear to be very complicated, but they were all tightly interconnected. He had never even heard of some of them. For example, 3 grade 3 formation arrays were used to assist a grade 4 formation array. Together, they could be used as a grade 5 formation array with a reduced cost. To him, this was a valuable experience indeed. He was not just recording the formation arrays in the research table. To Hui Yuhao, this was a learning process. After half a year, the 10 exchange students from Shrek Academy, as well as their teacher, all appeared very normal, including Hui Yuhao and He Kai too. Among the 10 of them, 6 had entered the illustrious Virtue Hall to study. The other 4 obtained permission to enter the illustrious Virtue Hall for 3 days a week. In terms of their overall abilities with Soul tools, they all progressed differently. Of course, they could not come into contact with the most important research. Even so, after this batch of exchange students returned, Shrek Academy's Soul Tool department would improve greatly. Of course, this was just a superficial appraisal. Half a month earlier, as the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy had lowered their guard, Fan Yu had finally found a chance to send a batch of Hui Yuhao's pictures back. These pictures were extremely valuable. To Shrek Academy's Soul Tool department, this was worth more than 100,000-year Soul Beast. With these pictures, they could cut 100 years off their research. Hui Yuhao still had the ability of a Class 6 Soul Engineer, but he was now one that even Xianziwen recognized. Hui Yuhao's progress shocked even Xianziwen. In the entire Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy, his understanding of Hui Yuhao's soul engineering abilities was the most complete. After he chose the path of a close combat soul engineer, Hui Yuhao felt like a tiny canoe in the middle of the ocean looking in the direction of a lighthouse. Not even Xianziwen understood his true progress in soul tools. Hui Yuhao exhaled as he stretched. Happily, he looked at the tiny silver piece of metal in his hands. The metal was irregularly shaped, and its complicated shape was formed from many different types of metal. Hui Yuhao had spent more than 10 days making it. Today, he was finally successful. This also meant that his soul thruster, which he had designed and made for himself, was complete. By picking the path of a close combat soul engineer, Hui Yuhao's first priority was not to increase his attack or his defenses. Instead, he needed to increase his speed. Compared to a normal soul ancestor, he was much more powerful. He had 3 times more soul skills than a normal soul ancestor. Regardless of whether it was in terms of attack, defense, or control, he had powerful soul skills in each. Coupled with his Eye of Destiny, his close combat abilities had reached a level of strength that, even against a Soul King or Soul Emperor, once he had drawn close enough to them, they might not be able to resist his attacks. However, his only weakness was in terms of his speed. He had domain-type control soul skills, as well as attack soul skills that could affect an area. However, these were not his specialty, and he could not change them so easily. No one could be strong in all aspects. When Hu Yuhao chose to specialize as a close combat soul engineer, he gave up his domain attacks and his ability to attack from a distance. Hence, he needed to increase his speed. Compared to a regular 4-ringed soul ancestor, even an agility-type 4-ringed soul ancestor, he was at least as fast, if not faster. However, if he faced a Soul King who specialized in speed, then his weakness would be exposed. Hence, he would need control-type soul skills to limit his opponent, and his disadvantage in speed meant that his originally explosive power would be affected. Hence, a soul thruster was his priority. However, he still had a positive outlook. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that these 2.5 years he would be spending in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy were important to raising his abilities as a soul engineer. He had his own plans for increasing his soul power. Just as Hu Yuhao was looking contentedly at the item in his hand, he suddenly felt an odd feeling. This did not come from him, but instead, from his Eye of Destiny. He could feel that the Eye of Destiny was numbing him, and a sense of danger crept up in his heart. Without hesitation, Hu Yuhao leapt to the side and tumbled off his seat. He curled up under the table as he released his Ice Empress armor, and his Hongshan's blessing could be triggered at a moment's notice. Boom, 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 for explosions sounded inside the illustrious Virtue Hall. The terrifying explosions instantly caused a destructive shockwave. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.